Okay, we are recording, and we are 11-2, and this is not straight. We have to be nice and proper. This was an emotional day. I'm not gonna lie. This was kind of a bittersweet day for me. Being, captain of the Kirk Defenders for many years. This was a little bit of a bittersweet situation because I knew it was going to be kind of awkward to essentially be cheering against Kirk, and I applauded him. Like when they showed him first on the, during the pregame thing. Get going here. Got to get home before it's dark. It's almost going to be dark. When they showed him on the thing, and it got booed. I mean, I'll say the boos were way bigger than I expected, and frankly, I found it a little grotesque that he got booed to that extent. I mean, I've never heard like arch rivals like Aaron Rodgers booed in that stadium to that extent. I just don't get it. I found that a little grotesque. Like, I'm not saying that you had to. I knew he wasn't going to get like a standing ovation or anything like that. Okay. I knew it wasn't going to be anything like that, but I was a little turned off by it, like the degree to which the booing was, because it didn't, sometimes you can tell kind of the tone of a booing, like sometimes it's like angry booing, sometimes it's kind of joking. This seemed really angry. This seemed like really angry, like vengeful booing, and I'm, I don't know. I don't understand that, but, they first announced him, like I gave him some applause, but it was bitter. It was a bittersweet situation because that's probably it for Kirk ever playing up here, because he probably doesn't have much left in the tank at this point. I mean, he looks like he looks, a 36-year-old quarterback coming off of the Achilles. That's why I wouldn't have paid him. Captain of the Kirk Defenders, but I would never have paid him what Atlanta paid him. But as for the game, I mean, the story is again, for like the third week in a row, is Sam Darnold. And if I hadn't been flipped last week to being like, you sign this guy long term, I sure as hell would be now. 5 touchdowns. He might have had a perfect passer rating. I know it was very close. Fantastic game from Darnold, and that was even with a slow start, and that was even with the O-line getting kind of worked early in the game, because Atlanta doesn't get many sacks, but they got Darnold a few times. 5 touchdowns. What was it? 3 of them to Addison and 2 to JJ. A couple of those were just bombs. I mean, there was the one where there was one to JJ where I thought he was going to get sacked. He gets away, fires a deep bomb, and Atlanta was helpful in the fact that they didn't want to cover anybody in this game, so that was helpful. A couple of those touchdowns, the 2 long ones, were just to basically uncover guys. Like we'll never see another play in his entire career where Justin Jefferson is that wide open deep down the field. But like a fantastic game from Darnold, absolutely fantastic. I will say it again. I'm going to keep saying it now. I think maybe week after week. For all the captain of the Kirk Defenders. Well, might be able to start becoming captain of the Darnold Defenders, because guess what? You sign this guy now. Sign him now. I'm not even fucking waiting, man. Sign him. See right now if he will take the deal. Take a deal that's not bank breaking. If he wants to go reset the quarterback market or something, I guess then you let him go. But maybe he doesn't. Like, we don't know. We don't know what's going on in his head. Maybe he won't want to do that. Maybe he won't. The whole argument is like, he was with the Jets, it was miserable. Went to Carolina, it was miserable, and then he went to San Francisco and it was backup. And boy, 49er fans might be wondering if they should have hung on to Darnold, considering the season they've had. But And now he's here and he's thriving. Like he had some bad games. He had a couple bad games, and not that long ago. But I mean, he has blown so far past any expectation that any reasonable human being could have had for him this year. You know, obviously the past 2 weeks, a lot of it was the, you know, being really clutch. You know, fourth quarter and OT in Chicago, like being really clutch in those key spots. Here he didn't really have that, because I never really had a feeling that, even when it got tied 21-all, I never really had the feeling that Atlanta was going to win, just because they weren't stopping us. So, you know, why would there be any nerves? Like, I'm sorry, you sign him. If you want to keep, and then what I would do is I would sign Darnold, and then if you want to trade McCarthy, maybe for draft picks, because I don't think this is a very good QB draft. Maybe one of these teams will want JJ McCarthy, and you can recoup some draft capital. Maybe even get a first-round pick back. You know, maybe you can do that. I would do it, because this isn't like when we first signed Kirk or, you know, any other guys that we brought in. This is a guy who is still pretty damn young. I don't know what his age is exactly, but I mean, you know, he came in, you know, he's been in the league now for what, six years, I think. 6-7 years, but he's still definitely young. He's still easily young enough to be a long-term franchise quarterback. You sign him. I don't care. Sign him. We don't. The biggest fear right now, and it's not a guarantee it would go this way, but the biggest fear is if you stick to this plan, you know, this preset plan that you made before you had any idea that Darnold was going to be able to do what he's been doing, and you know, you're going to move on to JJ McCarthy, who, I'm sorry, I was never that, like, over the moon for JJ McCarthy to begin with. I thought he was kind of, you know, a middling prospect to begin with. Like, we know what Darnold can be. Like, is you know, and obviously Darnold's not going to go 5 touchdowns and a perfect passer rating every week, but any more than he was going to go, you know, have a game like the Jacksonville game where he throws 3 picks and no touchdown. I'm just saying, we know what he can do in this offense, in this system. And we've got, you know, and this, you know, the argument of, oh, we got to have that rookie contract so we have the cap space. Well, you've got a lot of this cap space. You've already got the cap space. You know, use it. I think a pretty damn good use of some of that cap space is to keep a really good quarterback. I'm sorry, I know everyone is in love with the whole idea of the rookie contract quarterback, but guess what? If JJ McCarthy doesn't hit like they hope he hits, you could be really screwing yourself over the next few years if you let Darnold go. Maybe KOC is just an absolute whiz kid QB whisperer. That's a possibility. But boy, it's such a risk, and I know, and we don't know for sure yet what's going to end up happening with this season. But I'll say this: today was the first day this entire season that I had the feeling that this team could legitimately compete for a Super Bowl this year. Because if you can put out that potent an offense, and I know Atlanta's defense has been, you know, very suspect this year, but if you can put out that level of offense, and obviously, you know, we've got all the skill guys. Hell, we haven't even really lost a step without Darisaw. You know, what did I see? It was the first time we've had 2 receivers with 100+ yards and multiple touchdowns since like '86, and Darnold was the first Vikings QB to throw 5 touchdowns since Culpepper back in '04 when he had that big year. Like, even Favre didn't do that. Kirk never did it. Like, this is real. I think this is real, what we're seeing with Darnold. Doesn't mean Darnold like any other quarterback. Doesn't mean he's going to play perfect football every week. Doesn't mean he's going to be unbelievable. But I'm sorry, you keep him. Sign this fucking guy now. You know, sign him now before he hits free agency. We don't even have to wait for free agency. They should be working on it right now. And I'm sorry. I know they you know, big ballyhoo you see even at the games already. People wearing McCarthy jerseys. I'm sorry for it, but guess what? We've got a guy. And we know he is good, and we know he works in this system, and he's got some mobility. So there's some of the arguments that, you know, when it was Kirk that they're make against Kirk. You can't make those arguments against Darnold right now. You can't make the argument that, well, he's older. You can't make the argument that, well, he's not that mobile. You know, he's not like Lamar Jackson running around, but he can move around a little bit. And I'm sorry, I want him back. I want him staying with this team going forward. And obviously, nobody thought that would be the prevailing opinion. Nobody thought that would happen. You know, it's a happy accident. Like, this wasn't meant to be this way, but it is this way. Keep him. Because this was another fantastic game. I know there's something very symbolic about the fact that he had this level of game with Kirk in the building. The Kirk haters are even more happy because it happened with Kirk. It's like, but then that's that bittersweetness. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm elated that Darnold's doing what he's doing. It doesn't mean I like retroactively hate the guy who came before him. I think that's a really shitty way to be. That's a shitty way to be a fan. After the game, now there's they showed it on the jumbotron. The post game hug between Kirk and JJ. That, I got fucking emotional at that when I saw that. I was like, oh my god, the guys, because the last time Kirk played on that field was when he was lighting up the 49ers last year on Monday Night Football, and JJ hung the chain on. Like, it was great. And I'm not mad at the Vikings for moving on from Kirk at all. I wasn't mad before the season. I was, again, 36-year-old guy coming off an ACL. There was no guarantee he could even have played as well as he did for parts of this season. I was fine with what they did. I wasn't moved by the Darnold thing. I wasn't moved by the McCarthy draft. I was just like, oh, okay, that's why I didn't have the expectations for this season. I didn't think they were going to do very much because I didn't, and nobody else did. Nobody thought trust me, if they thought Darnold was going to do what he did, they wouldn't even have used a first-round pick on a quarterback, because why bother? You'd already have the guy. So, I'm 100%. I'm going to be leading the fucking charge for the rest of the season, unless his play goes completely in the tank again out of nowhere. And obviously, we do have some big games coming up where he's gonna have to have really, really good games for us to win. But yeah, I'm 100% on board with keeping Darnold long term as our guy. So obviously, obviously Addison and JJ had big games. JJ passed 7,000 yards, quickest to ever do it. Aaron Jones got, I think, over 70 yards. They broke off some runs late. They kind of stolen the will of the Falcons, so they just kind of ran it down their throat. Akers had some good runs in there. O-line was not good early. Darnold was getting hit a lot, pressured a lot. There was one play it almost turned into a strip sack fumble, but it was an incomplete pass. So there were some bumps in the road, certainly. I mean, 42-21 was the final. It was 21-all going into the fourth quarter, because Atlanta was moving the ball. Like, Kirk had a couple of vintage deep shots in this game. And he had two picks. The first one was just absolutely terrible throw. The second one was late. When they were already down I think they were down. Were they down 2 scores at that point? It's pretty late. He's got to try to. It's the old thing. You got to try to make a play at some point, and it was picked off. Who got him? I think it was Metellus got the first one, and then Murphy got the second one. Yeah, I mean, like, Kirk had a middling game. I think he had probably closer to the kind of game that the Kirk haters wanted. I think we sacked him. Actually, maybe we didn't sack him. Maybe we didn't sack him. They got some pressure on him a couple times. I know they were having some trouble blocking up the middle. He got some plays off. Like it's that thing. Like, I don't know if you ever called him a gunslinger, but it's like he had a few left in the chamber. He got a few out there. I know the first pick didn't lead to anything. I think we went 3 and out after that, and then the second one was late. The game was already over anyway. So the turnovers, I mean, obviously he leads the league in turnovers and still does now. They didn't mean much, but they moved the ball. They had to have ended up with about 450 total yardage. They ran the ball a lot. Our run defense was suspect again. We kind of sprung some leaks last week, and they were getting us a lot in this game. There was one drive. It was the one after the big bomb TD to JJ, where I think they went down like 5 plays. I think it was all on the ground, and they just went right through us to tie it back up, and they got the 2 to tie it back up. So I don't think the Falcons are very well coached. They went for that 4th down early. I didn't understand that. I mean, some of that's their kicker is terrible. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, maybe Parker Romo wouldn't want to sign with him because maybe he wants to go with a real playoff contender, and I don't know that the Falcons are that anymore. But their kicker has been bad, so they didn't trust him, so they went for a 4th down. That kind of sparked it because the Falcons went right down the field first drive of the game. All the booing, all the hollering, and Kirk hit a couple throws. They had some runs and they scored. So and it was 7-0, and then we went. I don't think we went 3 now, but we punted, and it's like, and then they're moving a little bit again. It's like, oh boy, is this going to be, are they going to have kind of one of those sleepy first halves again? But they kind of that failed 4th down that they had kind of sparked them, and that was stupid. And then they had that. Then we're up 14-7, and they go right before the half. They hit that was the real vintage deep shot by Kirk to Mooney, and then they had like a 2nd and goal at the 1, and they run like a stretch run. Like, why? Like, what kind of play call is that? Like playing right into our hands because we're fast. Like, we're gonna stuff that. And then they only got a field goal, and then we clanked a field goal. Will Reichert back out there, clanked a field goal. And then the other one was we were gonna settle for a field goal, but then they committed a holding on a field goal try, which is pretty rare. And then we got a 1st down out of that, and then we kept going and got the touchdown. That was the first one to JJ. So, I mean, Falcons fans are probably pretty depressed at this point because their season is teetering on the brink of oblivion. I know Tampa won today, so the Falcons are officially out of first place. What else? But yeah, I mean, the defense gave up a lot of yards for sure. I'm not saying that I think they're maybe a Super Bowl contender now because of the defense, but when your offense can be as potent as they are, they got a shot. And then who knows what happens? The big turning point in that 4th quarter. They had tied it up 21-all. We go down, right back down, get another touchdown. Go up 28-21, and then they fumble a kick return. And when that happened, it was like, okay, that's it. That's the ball game because they fumbled it. You're instantly in field goal range, and we got the touchdown. So, that was the ball game. It's kind of you kind of wonder what would have happened, because their offense was hot, our offense was hot. It was kind of like you couldn't make one of those one of those kind of mistakes. It's kind of I'm sure Kirk's thinking like, I just got this team down here to go 21-21, and now the next time I touch the ball, we're down 35-21. It's one of those. Kirk was probably very familiar with the concept of his defense getting lit up like that, and him being almost helpless. I mean, it wasn't a great Kirk game. I think passer rating was like in the 60s or something, but a bittersweet game, to have it happen to him. There were some moments where I was like, something bad happened with Kirk, and I'm like, I'm applauding it, and I'm like, it doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right because this has been my guy for 6 years. And I think it's the end for Kirk. It's bittersweet. Comes for everybody. Everybody reaches the end. Some of them through it largely due to injuries. Like I think that's what's happening here with Kirk. I'll never understand the vitriol, the level of vitriol that some Vikings fans have for the guy. I just don't get it. It goes beyond, hey, we didn't win a Super Bowl with this guy, or hey, maybe we don't even like his personality for whatever. Like it goes beyond some of this stuff, and I will not understand it as long as I live. But what else? Defense. Defense did its thing. Jalen Redmond had a real big game. He had a couple. We were getting a lot of tip passes at the line of scrimmage. I think probably like half of Kirk's incompletions were tip passes. I got to keep driving here because I'm not done talking. Yeah, I think, defense was fine. Like if you could force turnovers and occasionally get some, lost plays. They had some. Falcons had some bad penalties too. They had a whole bunch of holding penalties, and I don't think they're very well coached. Raheem Morris, I don't know how long he's going to last there. Yeah, as far as defense, they weren't like world beaters, but they were okay. I would say, obviously the story of the game was the offense, and I would say, now we turn to the playoff wait, because this game, some of it was because of the haters, the Kirk haters, reveling in his loss, but it was a very joyous atmosphere at the stadium, in that fourth quarter as we were pulling away. But this day could even get better because we could still clinch a playoff berth today. And now I've been driving for a while, so I haven't checked the scores. Last I saw, Seattle was beating Arizona, which we need, and the Rams and Buffalo were tied. So we need the Rams to lose, and we need the Cardinals to lose, and then we're in the playoffs. And I suppose would do another video after that. But God, I wish we could get some fucking home playoff games, man. But I think this team can do it. I think they can go on the road even if they have to go on the road for 3 games. I really do. Not saying it would be easy by any stretch of the imagination. Of course not. Of course it wouldn't be easy. You might have to go to Philadelphia. You would have to probably go to Detroit. I'm not too worried about that first game, and this win also gives us the one positive of the Detroit win the other day was Green Bay gets another loss on them. We got a little more cushion for that top wild card. We could even have that potentially, I suppose, have that clinched before we even play the Packers, or at least have that, clinch that high of a position. Yeah, I mean, I don't see why we can't go on the road and win certainly a playoff game, and maybe more. We're finally getting, Hockenson there was one big drive for Hockenson in this game. They kind of got the offense, it's kind of coming together, and the fact that it's without Darisaw is just astounding to me. And Darnold's play is ascending, and we've seen him be very clutch. I don't think this is a mirage. I really do think that we might have found our guy. And I hope that, the Vikings brain trust, I know what their plan was. I know the plan was, hey, we're gonna roll Darnold out there for this year. We might not even have seen Sam Darnold this year if J.J. McCarthy hadn't been hurt. It's possible that they might have, I don't think, probably not very likely, but I do think when Darnold had some of his struggles there for a while, I think there's a very strong chance that a healthy J.J. McCarthy would have replaced him. But we don't know what McCarthy's going to be. McCarthy could be a bust. It's very possible. We got the guy. I think. I really think we got the guy, and I hope we look at it that way. But I already talked about that. So, talked about the offense, defense. Back to Kirk. This is probably I won't have really much of any more reasons to talk about Kirk. And I've spent a lot of hours over the years talking about Kirk. I probably won't have any more excuses to talk about him unless we somehow manage to play them in the playoffs, although I don't know what's going to happen there. I know Atlanta's got some pretty winnable games the rest of the way, but now they're also a game behind. I like my final word on Kirk. I've said everything on his era. It's just, I think he was a very good quarterback here for 6 years. Doesn't mean he played every game perfectly. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean he escapes all blame for not winning playoff games, not winning more games in the regular season. Doesn't mean every interception he threw was someone else's fault. You know, there were bad games, but there were more good games than bad games, and we had some really fun games and fun seasons. Like, I'm sorry, it's sickening that this fan base only cares about the 4th and 8 play in the Giants game, about the 2022 season. That's your whole takeaway. I'm sorry, you missed a real fun season. That's like saying, you know, the Gary Anderson field goal is the only thing you remember about 98. Well, then you're choosing to be miserable about this stuff then. Because, you know, that was a really fun season. We had other fun games. There was no, you know, the losses were frustrating. Sometimes they were really ugly. You know, I'm aware that we didn't win in the playoffs. I'm aware that Kirk was very well paid for his play here. But I think he earned it. And no, he didn't. He didn't keep us from doing things in free agency because we had lots of very expensive players elsewhere on the roster. And the big reason why we've been able to sign the guys we did this past offseason is because all of them have gone. They're all gone. There's there's very few like super high paid guys left from say 2018, 2019. They're all gone. And it wasn't, it's just all the narratives. All the narratives just drove me nuts for 6 years. They still drive me nuts. It drives me nuts that people won't learn. And it's like poisoned the fan base against the guy. Like, you're not saying you got to root for the guy now when he's not with your team. You don't have to root for a guy who's not on your team just because he used to be on your team. But I did find the level of booing and some of it be a little grotesque today, just because it wasn't warranted. He didn't do anything to you to warrant this level of hatred. He didn't do it. People hated him for years. People supposed Vikings fans rooted against the Vikings because they hated Kirk, and they did. And anyone who says that they didn't, they're lying. So I guess they got to enjoy a Vikings win and a Kirk loss instead of one or the other. I don't know, but I appreciate the 6 years, and I hope we can still maybe salvage something from this season and maybe from whatever time he has left in his career. I mean, he's, I don't know if maybe he's got, maybe this is his 08 Brett Favre season and maybe he's got something left. Maybe not. Maybe this is just the end, because the end comes for every quarterback, whether they're a Hall of Fame quarterback or a pretty good quarterback, whatever. It happens. It comes for everybody, and this might be the end for Kirk. It's kind of bittersweet that we kind of are part of the sticking the nail in the coffin for him, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Still fun to see him play one more time, and we won, and that's, and I'm glad we won. I wasn't rooting for the Vikings to lose. I wanted to thread the needle of a Vikings win with Kirk playing well. I wouldn't say we threaded the needle, but we got close. We got a few Kirk highlights, and obviously a very exciting Vikings performance that again has me thinking that they could actually be playing in February. And maybe I'm just starting to drink the purple Kool-Aid a little too much, but I really do think that. I mean, there aren't too many teams. I mean, unless you want to just forfeit the whole rest of everything and just say, hey, it's Detroit and maybe Philly. Well, there's always other teams can do it, and we've seen that we can compete with Detroit, and we didn't have Hawkinson in that game, and they're banged up on defense. I mean, whoever you can play in the playoffs, you're gonna have to outscore them, but I think we can outscore guys. So. All right, I kind of did a little extra driving here to keep talking, but now I really do need to get home because it's almost dark. Yeah, I think So, Kirk, thanks for the memories. We had some fun seasons, some good games. You're still going to be one of my all-time favorite Vikings, and nothing that happened today or this season or in the future will change that. So, and with that, we move on to the excitement over what could still be with this Vikings season, including potentially being in the playoffs by the end of the day. and I think potentially legitimately now being capable of a playoff run. So, and it's getting dark, and it's very noticeable that it's getting dark, so I'm going to stop talking. But so yeah, 42 to 21, Vikings win. We are 11-2. I believe we haven't had that good of a record since I believe the 2000 season, and that didn't go very well. Hopefully this one ends better than that one did. So it's time for me to stop talking. So Skol Vikes.